Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Just Daf It, Daf Yomi Shir. We're learning today's Daf, Daf Yud Beis, number 12 in Maseches Kesubos. Finally, I caught up. It's really not fair. I mean, these weekends, the fast day. I mean, come on. Schedule not in my favor, but you know what? We're doing it. We're moving right along. Um, you want to give significant time to these sugyas because I'll tell you the truth. If you go to any yeshiva to learn Maseches Kesubos, it's one of the most common mesechtas learned in all the yeshivas in the world, and most yeshivas um, basically will learn daf beis. They'll skip to like daf tes, um, and then they'll just do from daf tes to the end of the parak, and that might be the whole year, meaning 6 months. A whole winter's month, which could be 7-8 months. Sometimes they'll do it maybe a whole year. Maybe they'll start Elunaros, which is the third parak, and learn maybe a couple daf there. And that's it. You're looking at 8 to 10 blot in a whole year. Right now, we're going through these dapim at a blot a day. So this is pretty fast. Consider yourself in yeshiva. This is Yeshiva's YouTube. Welcome to Yeshiva's YouTube. If you don't know that you're part of it, by listening to your share, you'll become part this year, or any of the 40 share I give a week who are becoming part of Yeshiva's YouTube. It's a privilege to have you with us. So we're gonna go through Daf Yud Beis. We did Daf Yud Aleph this morning. Daf Yud Beis now talks more about really start like Migu. We're gonna get into Migu today on Yud Beis and Yud Beis. Bari V'Shema Migu. Um, Bari V'Shema Migu. These are two prominent sugyas over here. Cheskes Haguf, Chazak the Mikaro. We've come across some of these terminology in Maseches Yevamos, but now we're really going to get into it. This is the bread and butter Daf Yud Beis and Beis, another famous sugya I mentioned in Ger Katan, Bill and Tel is based in. We talked about this morning. Daf Yud Aleph. This is also one of the more famous sugyas in Shas. Of course, you can want to stick around for Yom Ben Sion, where we discussed and analyzed it even further. All right, let's start from the bottom of Yud Aleph and Beis. Third to last line. Tana Rabbanan, last word of the line. Tana Rabbanan, Kansa Rishon, L'Shem Shum Nisuin. V'yesh La'edim Shalom Nister. Let's say a man marries a woman. They went into the chuppah together, and they never went into a yichud room. There are edim that say, in fact, they never went. They were never miyachi. They were never by themselves. Alternatively, there were witnesses. They did go into the yichud room, but they didn't stay for the amount of time it takes to do bia. How long does it take to do bia? The Gemara in Sota at the beginning discusses that. Some estimates say 30 seconds, maybe. Some say 2 minutes. If you're going to go machmir, you go machmir, makel. Depends on the man. All right. So, Shasakide bia. Ein Hashem yachal on tanis besulim. You have Adam that they didn't have bia, so therefore a second person comes and marries them. She gets divorced after this brief encounter, this chuppah without a bia, presumably, and she gets married to a second guy. Either the first husband died, or is megarish, or so the second guy marries her. He can't stay anymore. You don't have basulim anymore because we assume that what? Probably we assume that. It's hard to assume. We don't know what to assume because we have Adam that say that we obviously assume that was from before the first marriage. He can't tiniest basulim anymore. Well, what does it mean? We're gonna have to analyze this more in Daf Yud Gimel. Basically, he can't say she deserves less. She deserves at least. We learned in the Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph, Aleph, that she's only entitled. The second marriage is only entitled to a mana, even though there was no bia. Just the mere fact of these two and being under the canopy or the canopy bed with the chassan relegates her ksuba to a mana. But he can't say she's not a psula and get rid of the mana because either we assume that there was a mistake over here, they made a mistake, there really was a bia, or we assume she was nevelas before the original marriage. So you can't take away that mana for her. She's automatically not to a mana, even if she's not a virgin. Shari Kansarishan was the first one brought her into the marriage. Top of Yud Beis Manal. I'm a rabbi Zosu Meras Kansa B'Cheskas Psula V'Nimseis Ba'ula Yesh Laksuva. That's way into what we were just discussing on Daf Yud Aleph and the Beis. If he thinks she's a psula and she's trying to be a ba'ula, which is what we're saying over here, yesh ksuva mana, she still gets a ksuva of mana. That's what the Brisa says. You see from that, from the Brisa, Rashi Amar, Really, if it was a regular case of psula, she was never married, she was never under a canopy with anybody. Really, and it's a mekach toast. We'll talk about in Gilmal and Aleph more. Is it a mekach toast and they're not married anymore, or is it mekach toast? She's not entitled to a ksuba mitnai based in, but she would get a ksuba mitakana later takana mchazal shalotei kala ben avlotzia. So each like ksuba manar. It was shiny. Really, normally, if he thinks she's a psula and she's not, she doesn't get anything. Shiny hacha shari kansa rishon. Here it's different because she had a chuppah with the first one. She had a couple with the first one, so therefore that devalues her, and he has to assume that she's a ba'ula. He can't assume she's a psula. Fine. So now she got married to the second one, and they had a long, drawn-out erusin, and then he got married. But in terms of isra v'heter, maybe right, he should be somech on the edom that says she never had bia with the first one. The first guy got married as a psula. He offered her a ksuba as matayim. And now he finds out she's a bula. Maybe she was tacht of zinsta and she become asura to him, right? Amrav Sharbia, Kigon Shakide Shubal Alter. Now the second case, he's Makadisher and he did Bia right away. So therefore, we assume that that it wasn't tachtav. It wasn't tachtav, and she was just probably a ba'ula. Either the Edom were misled, and she did have Bia with the first guy, or she was a ba'ula from the first one. Because the Masina Masnisin, some say this conversation happened in our Mishnah. Psula amana grusha v'chalutza min anasuin. She's a psula, but she had nisuin. She had on chuppah. Nisuin is a chuppah. Kesubos and mana. That's what the Mishnah in Aleph says. If her husband dies or divorces her, she's a chalutza. Also, her husband dies, and then she's a chalutza. He's a brother of the deceased husband is cholitzer. Kesubos and mana. Kesuba is a mana of elhen tainas pesulim. She doesn't have the guy doesn't have time to claim she's a ba'ula and I should void her contract. What's the case of the Mishnah? She went into the chuppah and for whatever reason we can assume this doesn't say there was Eidim, but for every we can assume she says or it's that's the rumor going around. She was in Nevelis. Amar Rabba is also Maris. You conclude from our Mishnah. He thinks she's a psula second guy, and she's a ba'ula, she still gets a ksuva of a mana. So the Mishnah says, Ravashi Amar the Olam Emolach Ba'amalei Stakla. Really, I could tell you she gets nothing if he thinks she's a psula. She went into the canopy. Now the rumor is she wasn't Nevel, so maybe she was, so therefore he should have known. How could he stay with her? Maybe she's a surah. Amar Sharbi Baal Alter, he's Makadisher and Baal Alter, and therefore he has nothing to worry about. That she was dinsa tachta. This conversation is a machlokas when this conversation happened. The one who says this conversation happened about the brisa, and certainly in the Mishnah the same conversation would apply. And the one who says the conversation about our Mishnah brisa low. Maybe the brisa right is not a proof, right? Maybe Ravashi doesn't have an answer. Right, Ravashi retorted to him, maybe, no, it's no proof. The concept of Cheskes Psula and Nimses Ba'ula, she gets a Mora. Maybe the truth is like Rabba says, and maybe Ravashi doesn't have a disproof over here, because he could say, in the first case, there was Adam that said she didn't have Bia. So you could say, I was Somech on the Adam, so therefore it would be a good proof, right? It would be a good proof. That concept of chesed psula v'nimtze is ba'ula. Yesh la ksuva. She does get a ksuva. You can't say you can't. There's no retort over Rashi. Rashi would not retort over here according to this way of saying it, because he's somech on the Edom and he's somech on the Edom. He thinks she's a psula, so therefore. Therefore, it would say if he could somech on the Edom for she's a psula, and therefore maybe. Technically, in this case, we conclude the opposite, that concept of chesed psula and says ba'ula, you should, like Rabbah says, she should get a mana. We can't say mekach tos, like I said before. I didn't change what I said. That's what I said. All right, the Mishnah. Ochal it's a cham of Yehuda. The Mishnah says someone eats by his in-laws in Yehuda. And Yehuda was the lower part of Eretz Israel. They used to have a minhag. Sfidas Eresin, and they would seclude also. They had the meal by the Sfidas Eresin over there, and before the marriage, the husband and wife, or the groom and the fiance and the fiancée. Yes, I say the girl. I don't know. The fiance is the girl. I don't know. The fiance is the boy. I don't know. They ate together. Shalom Edim, and they weren't Edim when they secluded. Eno Yachal Liton Tainas Pesulim. He no longer can say after they got married, there's not a psula, because they seclude, the minhag was to seclude with each other. We assume even though it's Asr Midrabanan, they were still Boel, they weren't so Nizar in Allah. Most people can't hold themselves back. It was him who made her Ba'ula. He has no claim to say it was she who tricked him. Ha'ochel, it sounds like in the case where, right? It sounds like even in Yehuda, there are certain places where they didn't always have sudas by his in-laws and miyachid with her. There are certain places had the minhag, certain places didn't have the minhag. Kedesanya, like the Bryce said, Yehuda, Rishona, how you mayachin as a chasan as a kala, sha'achas kodam knes in the chuppah. In Yehuda, the minhag was they would have yichud, the chasan and kala, right? Go to the cher yichud before the chuppah. They should live gaspa in order that he should be familiar with his wife. V'galu la you also came, right? We mentioned previously the reason they used to do this was because gaspa, so that she shouldn't want to be with the Roman general or the Roman emperor willingly when he takes her before the marriage. Others say the explanation over here, libo gaspa, is that a husband and a wife, they never touch each other and they're going to be together in the first night. They're not comfortable with each other. It's not going to be a pleasant experience for the wife, especially if the man is not comfortable with the woman the first time. So, for the man also, but especially for the woman, the first night is very important and it registers in her mind for a long time. So you want to do it the right way the first time. The first bia should be a pleasant experience for the woman. If not a pleasant experience for the woman, she could be traumatized for life, especially if we do it really wrong. So it makes sense, this minhag. Libo gaspa, they would touch each other. Even though we said there's an isra of bia before nisuin, during Eriston, who says there's an isra of negia or the shika or hugging and kissing? Maybe that stuff is okay. Even with Rabbanan, that stuff is okay. The bia together, Ashalan and Tarusas is the bia. Maybe there's a real source to be makel on. If that's only the Rabbanan and the bia, they wouldn't make a gzera to Asher than a shika and the hugging and the kissing. So maybe that's technically mutter and Yehuda and technically mutter everywhere. Not such a bad minhag. I advocate this minhag. It makes a lot of sense. So the Gemara says, "V'golo yosin kain," and Gala didn't do this. But Yehuda b'rishona yimam b'din lahem sheish shbina echalo v'echala. Yehuda, when they did this, when they secluded, they would give two attendants, one to him and one to her. K'dei lamashbish. There's a chasim and a sakala. B'shas kisasam l'chuppah, in order to make sure they didn't do plenty tricks the first night, meaning that he's going to try to stay, there was no dam basulim. So he might get the thing he cleaned himself with, the cloth he cleaned himself with after the bia, and it had blood on it. He'll try to lose that on purpose. So they're going to make sure he won't lose that, or they'll make sure that he doesn't put the wrong sheets on there she might put sheets on there that have a stain of blood, even though when she's really a ba'ula, she's not going to have a stain of blood. V'gola yosin kain. Gola they never miyacheh. There's no reason to do this. Behuda b'rishona himushushbin yishenim b'beis shachas and kali yishenim, but they would sleep in the same house, not in the same room. Obviously, v'gola yosin kain. V'gola they didn't do this. Kol shalanag mikmina gazeh eino yachol itontainus basulam. Anyone who didn't do this minhag, he can't be tontainus basulam. From the end of this brisa, shalanag minhag zeh, it sounds like even Yehuda there were places that did the minhag and places that did the minhag. Ahaya. So let's just analyze this last line in the brisa. Ilay ma reisha. Right, so instead of saying lo nag minhag, right? Anyone who did the minhag of secluding, then he can't make tanas psulim because we assume he was the one that was bowler. So that's the wrong lashon. Safe must be on a safe. If you say people that were not knowing the minhag, right, is going on a seifa, right? It should say kol shelo mushmash, not kol shelo nag minhag. Anyone who wasn't mushmash, there's no shushbinin over the second part of the seifa. Was talking about the shushbinin, and he didn't have the shushbinin, so then he can't tie to this. Amar Abai lo'olam ratio. That's why the ratio. Tani kol shanag. It's a mistake in the brisa. It's a little wrong gear. So we said kol shanag, kol shalonag. Amar Abai kol shalonag. You can't just play around and change the word so easily. Amar Abai hakikam kol shalonag minag galil b'galil minag Yehuda b'galil. If he's knowing the minhag Yehuda, if he is the Galil, he's knowing the minhag Yehuda. So see, even Galil is technically mutter. I know Yachlit and Tanis Basulam. He can't do Tanis Basulam. Rashem or the Olam Seifa. Really, you could say using on the Seifa. The Tani Kol Shalom Mushmash, right? it's not such a big change because we're saying we're not changing the word shalo to delete the word shalo. We're keeping the word shalo instead of nahag shalom mushmash, and therefore it's going in the seifa, right? Shalom mushmash. If he didn't have the attendants with them to make sure there's no trickery, he can't be telling Tanis Basulim because we assume he tricked. Mishnah says achas almanas yisrael achas almanas kohanim ksuvas almana. Now almana, like we said before, whether she's a bas kohen or a bas Israel, she gets almana. Based on Shekhanim, you go in the psula arba me'azuz v'lamichu yadam chamim. It was that kana that the Beis and the Kohanim made at the ksuva, the main ksuva for a psula, if it was a kohenes, the bas kohen, right? Special to marry bas kohen. The Gemara Psachim says it's a special thing to marry a bas kohen. So 400 zuz. It specifically says the word zuz because we're assuming that it's their abundant. Whenever you say zuz, see the word zuz, it means the currency of that place. Zuz means mezuma, and moves from one hand to another using the currency of that place. As opposed to the opinion we saw in Daf Yud Amid Aleph that said maybe Kesubos Doraisa will be measured by the idis, which is kaputki, a Kuwaiti, the Kuwaiti dinar, which is the most expensive currency in the world. So, hey Mamru v'hay Mamru, it's Chans Chazal midrabanan to give Masayim Zuz for whatever place you are. So they elevated it to 400. This is not what we'll learn more about Tosefes Ksuva. There you could add on to this. This is the regular Ksuva. Raisa says Tanav Almanas Kohanim Ksuvas Masayim. Raisa says that Almanas Kohan, Almana from Bas Kohen, her Ksuva is 200. Our Mishnah says even an Almana from a Kohen, from Bas Kohen, she only gets Almana. Rashi Shtei Takanos Hapo. There were originally two different Takanos that Mikarat Takinun Lebsula Ara Me'azuz. Originally, these kids in the background, I don't know, they had nothing better to do with their time. They wanted to come learn here at 5:30. They come learn in the other room, so I couldn't go into the other room because they make a loud ruckus in the other room while they're supposed to be learning. And now they came to the other side of the shul and are making that noise outside. That's what I have to deal with in Yeshiva's YouTube, the Moser Nefesh. Someone should donate a building to Yeshiva's YouTube. All right. Originally, they made that kind should get 400 zuz. Almana, a widow, even if she's a bas kohen, only gets a mana. Top of Yud Beis Mameis. Came on the chazu, the mezalzeli bahu. Once they saw the mezalzel and the bas kohen, the kingdom of Masan, they were masakin for almana bas kohen to get 200 zuz. Came on the chazu the kaparshem minayah. Then they saw that no, they're not even marrying the widows of the kohanim bas kohen. The amri adin esbina almanas kohanim nezel naisa besula basel. It's not worth it to get married to an almanas bas kohen. She's an almana. She's used already. She's secondhand, you know. I'd rather get married to Basula Bas Yisrael. It's almost the same price. Adrino the Messiah, they went back. Then Almana Bas Kohen got only 100 for her ksuba. But the original takana of getting 400 for the Basula's Kohen stayed in place. Beis Shakohanim. Amri Yudam Mashmuel, lo Beis Shakohanim Belvad. It's not just Beis Shakohanim could do this. Amri Ela Filu Mishpachos HaMiyuchasos B'Yisrael. So you have the miyuchas, the families, the great families, the chashava families in Klal Yisrael, the Gedolim families. I don't know, the rich, the real estate moguls families. I don't know what's a mishpachas miyuchas. I mean, a good lineage. I mean, what they have. They have a good name in the world. They're the Rothschilds of the world. They're your Rothschild or. Reichmans, I don't know, all the fancy names. Okay, so who's that rich guy? Is a really rich guy. What's his name? Ruin Schroen, I think from Flatbush. I think he's worth like $10 billion. He might be the richest like Orthodox Jew. I think so. I'm not sure entirely. I'm not a Masholach. It was interesting. I talked about in my interview with Shmuel Wittow about these drivers, you know, and he was telling me stuff that I don't think common people know about. The drivers in America, you know, for the Mishulachim and the people collecting for yeshivas and kolim, they hire these drivers who know all the license plates and addresses of the big Gevirim and when to come to them. He told me some of them take a third, some of them take more, some $4,000 for a week. And they actually had a sign. I couldn't believe there was actually a sign outside the shul over here that said, you're a Mishulach, you're going to Artzot HaBrit, you don't want to pay a third for the driver, I have the answer for you. And they have a data bank. They give you call up a number. Plus, they also tell you what times the minyanim are in the places where you go, right? The places you go to Lawrence, New York, they'll tell you all the minyanim that you can go to in Lawrence, what time they are. This is the bonus hotline, new hotline, you know. They'll tell you what time. Everybody knows what time, you know, Mr. Cohen or Mr. Goldberg, they come home from work every day. You knock on their door exactly at 7:05. I mean, This is common knowledge. It's become. I'm shocked there was a sign that said it outside the shul here. Don't know what's going on in the world. So Elam Mishra B'Chas B'Yisrael, the Chasha family Israel. I'm Rasul Asas K'derech Shagana Osten. Right? If you're a big Rosh Yeshiva, a big Vir, you could do this. Meisvei Arotel Asas. Your daughter is worth more. Arotel Asas Ksuva K'derech Shagana Osten. You go on Bas Yisrael Lakon, Bas Kohen Yisrael Osten. Bas. So the Brayta says, if anyone who wants to do this, they could do it. So the Gemara's Medayik, Bas Yisrael Lakon, Bas Kohen Yisrael, the Ikasad Kohuna. There you could do it. Because one side of the family, there's either the Bas Cohen or it's a Cohen, or the man is a Cohen. Abbas Yisrael, no, but just regular two Yisrael families, they can't do this. They can't elevate the level of the Ksuva. The Gemara answers no. Lo mi boy kamer, lo mi boy Bas Yisrael, the lo matzi amar la iluye kamalina. One a regular Yisrael is marrying another Yisrael, even one in Mishpachim Yuchasos. You can't say in terms of exclusivity, in terms of Judaism, I'm giving you an aliyah, I'm not giving you anything. We're both families of Israel. A Bas Yisrael, a Kohen, a regular Jewish girl, daughter of Israel, marrying a Kohen, the Matzi Amar La, the Kohen can say to her, Lui Kama Alina La. There's no way you can demand a ksuva of 400 zuz, right? I'm helping you out, right? You're a regular Bas Yisrael. I'm a Kohen. I'm a real Kohen. You know, I could take the pigeon Ben. I get the money from pigeon Ben. I'm worth a lot of money. Still no. She could demand 400 zuz. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah, the Brayta. Even in that case, she could demand 400. Certainly, Yisrael to Yisrael. If one's been michasos, you could demand more money. The Mishnah says, "I know say it's a isha, v'lo matzala b'sulam." He marries a woman again, either made a tainus pesach asuach, tainus damim. He'll marry, but here she sticks up for herself. She has something to say. He'll marry mishar stani nasti. In his tachba sadeu, she says, "Indeed, I'm not a psula. I was nenas after the Erisin. Someone raped me. And you lost out. You're in Rishus. You agreed to give me the matayim as a psula. I wasn't nivelis anyone yet. He says maybe no. He doesn't know for sure. He says maybe you were nivelis before. Right? He's a shema. He's not sure. She's saying bavada. He's saying b'shema. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar, Omrim Nemesh. And as I say, she's believed, right? She's believed she can get a ksuva of Masayim. We can't believe her. We assume she's a ba'ula before she got engaged. And she tricked him. Until she brings a better proof. The Gemara says, a similar type of case. We're going to compare our Mishnah. If a person demands $100. You owe me $100. Hello, Mer, any other day. I'm not sure if I actually borrowed $100 from you. Rav Yudah, Rav Huna, Amri Chayiv. They say you're Chayiv, right? We're gonna see Bari v'Shema Bari Adav. I make a vada claim, you make a Shema. It's nothing motzi mamon from you. Rav Nachman Rav Yochanan, Amri Potter. When they say you're Potter, Rav Nachman Rav Yochanan, we pass like Rav Nachman Rav Yochanan. Rav Huna, Rav Yudah, Amri Chayiv, Bari v'Shema Bari Adav. A vada claim is better than a Shema claim, so therefore it's not to be motzi mamon. It's not that they disprove, they don't agree that Bari V'Shem and Bari Adav. Bari is a better claim than a Shema, but is it enough to be Motzi Mammon or not? And that's good for what they're arguing about over here. I'm going to explain this more in Yud Ben Sion. Bari is better than Shema, but it's not enough to be Motzi Mammon. You need a definitive proof. It's not a conclusive proof. It's not like Shtei Edim or a Rove or something like that to be Motzi Mammon from the other person. That's why we keep the money where it is. Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef. Hadar Rav Yehuda, Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda lived in Shmuel. What Rav Yehuda said, right, about that Bari Yoshem Bari Adif, it's the same thing as Shmuel. He does not. There's a Mishnah coming up on Daf It. She's pregnant, and people ask her, they want to know if she was Mizana, right? If she becomes a Zona, she was with someone Asura to her or not. Mativa Shalu Bezu, Mish Ploni V'Konish says she was a regular Jew. There was no problems with him. It wasn't a forbidden relationship. I mean, it was forbidden because we're out of wedlock, but it doesn't make me a Zona. Rav Gamliel, Rav Elazar Omrim, and he wants to say, no, you became a Zona. Rav Gamliel, and you psul to the Kun. Rav Gamliel, Rav Elazar Omrim, Nemenes. We believe her. Amr Yehuda Mashmuel, Lach Rav Gamliel. Says Allah Chaval, Rav Gamliel, Amr Lei Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Rav Yehuda. Shmuel Bar Yehuda said to Rav Yehuda, Shinana. Amart La Mishmei the Shmuel, Lach Rav Gamliel, Aspirashon. You said Allah is like Rav Gamliel, even in the first one. Well, even in the first case. My aspiration, what does that mean, even in the first case? Why there's more of a reason in our case, which is the first case, to not say this, and still, right? Okay, there's a cheskas mamon over here, right? There we're talking about just Isser v'Heter. Here, the Cheskas Mamon over here. Amar Gamliel Bari Adif. Bari Gamliel, nonetheless, in our mission says Bari Adif. So you see that Shmuel held like Rabbi Gamliel. So the Gemara says, "Lemor Rabbi Yehuda of Rav Huna the Amri Rabbi Gamliel." Say Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda say exactly like Rabbi Gamliel. Rav Nachman Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Amri Rabbi Yishua. Now Rabbi Yochanan, we're talking about a case of money libiyadcha, right? By money, Bari B'Shem Bari Adif or not, or Ukimon Mechazkes Mari. So well, let's say the machlok is different. It's the exact same machlok in our Mishnah. Amalacha Rav Nachman says no. Ana Damri I feel like Rabbi Gamliel. I could even say like Rabbi Gamliel, which is going to be the truth how we paskin. Ad kan Rabbi Gamliel hasam eladi kamigu. Gamliel in our Mishnah, it's not just Bari V'Shema, Bari Adiv. It's you have Bari V'Shema, plus you also have a Migu. Migu means she could have said a better statement, right? She could, instead of saying that she was raped after the Erison, she could have said it better. She could have said Muka Zeitzani. She could have said the reason I don't have Psulim, it dislodged by wood after that, which is better for her because if she said by saying in Mishar Asani Nasi, I was raped, she comes out through to a Kohen in the future. Based on her words, she can't marry a Kohen from now on. She says Mukatzeh, she's still allowed to marry a Kohen. Hacha, my migo iko. When it comes to Dine Mamonis or Mali Biyadcha, what migo is there? Right? So therefore we say if Bari V'Shem is not enough to be Motzi Mamon. Inami Adkan Kamar Gamliel Hasam El Damina Ukma Chazaka. Gamliel, maybe the reason in the Mishnah is not because of the migo, maybe there is not a good migo over here. The reason is because you have a Bari V'Shem. In addition, you also have a Cheskas Haguf, right? When she's born a Psula. So until we know that she became a Ula, we assume it happened at the latest possible time. So therefore, we assume it happened after Erison and before Erison. So therefore, Ukma Chazaka, Avahacha, my Chazaka Isle. There's no Chazaka by Mammon. Lahai, Hachanami Mistabra. So it makes sense to say that Rav Nachman can fit Rav Gamliel. The Rav Nachman who the Amrak Rav Gamliel, Rav Nachman says like Rav Gamliel. Top of Yudgimel Mad Aleph, Dim Ken Kash Hilchasa. If you don't say this, we have a question on how two halachas, disagreeing with each other. The Kaimal halacha Hilchasa Rav Nachman Medina. You normally pass Rav Nachman Medina Mamonis. So in the case of Mana Libiyadcha, we pass in Bari V'Shema. Bari doesn't win over there because Ukim Mamanu V'Chezkas Mari. Uvaha Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rav Gamliel. And here we pass like here it's also Dina Mamon. It's passing like Shmuel halacha Rav Gamliel. That's accepted halacha. Pass Rav Gamliel. We have to figure out how both of these halachas go together. It must be that when it comes to his Mana Libiyadcha, we pass on like Rav Nachman because we hold like him Dina Mamonis. Our mission, why is our mission any different? Either because you have a cheskas aguf or because you have a migo, which adds more credibility. I'm going to explain exactly how in Ian of Ben Sion, how the migo or the cheskas aguf actually is enough to be motzi mamon. And we'll also discussed about the Isser v'Heter. We explained that Dina Mamon as well. The Isser v'Heter, the Rishonim debate this. We're going to talk about it and try to prove the side that most Rishonim seem to say. See you in Ian of Ben Sion coming up right now.